Okay, so I'm going to pull up the poems again, and I want you guys to walk me through what you found, okay? If I can remember where.
Okay.
Share my screen. Who wants to go first? Let's make Skylar go first, because hers is short.
What?
Mine's short too.
I know, hers is shorter.
Yeah, let him go first.
You want to go first, Cooper?
Yeah.
All right. Go for it.
So in the the first line, this is my letter to the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's "to" and "the" might not mean anything because that's just something that people say. But then I found this thing that I thought it was pretty clever, and that was the simple news that nature told. That's a double N sound, and even though it's separated by a word, it still like does something to the brain.
Yeah, especially because there's the T sounds in between it, right? The simple news that nature told
Mhm.
with tender, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Good. Okay.
so that's a good one. And then down at the bottom with sweet, that's that's in there. It seems like because she's trying to make sure that we know she thinks highly of her countrymen.
Mm-hmm.
Like she could have just done for love of her countrymen, but she put sweet and she also put the dashes there to be like, pay attention to this word here because that's why I'm putting it in there.
Yeah, it's kind of like when people these days use all caps to get attention. She kind of did all caps there in her own way, right?
Yeah.
Good. I have a question for you. I meant to mention this earlier. So you have a ton of pronouns in yours. And that's another thing that's important when you're doing analysis to make sure you have an idea of where you think the pronouns are referring to. So this is my letter to the world. Does this mean the poem? What do you think?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? What do you think it is? Something else?
The letter isn't going to be a part of the poem just because it isn't written like a letter at all.
Mm-hmm. Good.
It's like describing, like, this is why I'm writing it, or this is giving us a little bit of extra context of why she's writing it.
Okay. So that's one of the questions as the reader you need to answer is what is this? Is it the poem or is it something else? And how do you know that? Why? Why do you think that? And then the other ones you have are her message is committed. Who is her?
Nature.
Okay, that was my guess too. Could it be anything else?
Um, could it be that the second one is from the perspective of nature?
Okay, it could be. That it
Just
does happen in poems where they switch which persona's talking. That's an interesting idea
mhm.
for sure. But then any idea that you have, you've got to figure out ways to justify that that's how you're reading it. What's your evidence, right?
Yeah,
Okay, what I'm sorry, I went on a little bit
yeah.
of a tangent. What else did you notice?
Uh, that's pretty much it.
Okay, good. That's great
We'll
stuff.
just keep talking about the tangent.
So there's two hers in that second stanza. It most likely they both refer to the same her, but they could be different. That's.
Mhm.
And then who is the me? If the persona switches, is it now the me someone different than who wrote the letter to the world that never wrote to me? Are those the same me or different me's? Okay. So just some thoughts to think about. Skylar, you're up. What did you come up with? Yours is different than everyone else's, so you're on mute.
Oh, oops.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
You guys can all help her too, because hers is kind of different and kind of hard. For that.
I feel like. Oh, what? What?
Nothing. Go.
What?
Stop stalling.
I'm not so.
She
Me. I would never stall. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I think it's. I feel like the two longer lines are like kind of drawing attention to them, obviously, but like I don't know, those two lines within their context and stuff kind of just makes me feel like the speaker is shifting the blame off of himself,
Okay.
like oh well, you were probably saving them for breakfast, but like you know like they were delicious, like oh they were really good though, or like I don't know,
You're
the entire
jumping to
poem.
analysis a little bit, and I want you to either now connect it to the evidence you found or go back to the evidence you found.
Sorry. Okay, so the poem as a whole feels pretty unapologetic because of the casual tone and the lack of actual apologies. There's no I'm sorry. There's no what can I do to make it better. It's just, and like it's just really like this is just to say like oh by the way.
Good. You noticed the title. So titles can tell us a lot if there are titles. The other two don't really have titles like you do. The title functions as another level of the poem, right? Another line.
Yep.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Right. If he changed the title, would it change the understanding of the poem? Like if the title of the poem was something like My Deepest, Darkest Apology or something more like that, right? It would change the tone of the poem.
Yeah.
But
For
so
sure.
good noticing that. Good. What did you come up with as far as like sounds of words and literary devices?
I have something to add right there.
Okay.
If he did change the title to "This is my deepest and darkest secret" or like apology or whatever, that would probably make me think better of him, because like if his worst sin is eating plums that he wasn't supposed to, like I don't.
Right? Okay, so Skylar, you don't have pronouns like Cooper did, but you kind of do in that I is kind of like a pronoun. So who's the I, and who's the you, and who's the me? Is there anything hinky going on there? Is it all pretty straightforward? It's probably pretty straightforward, right? But I'm gonna read it, and I want you guys just to really listen to the sounds that sound good together.
Will
Okay.
do.
I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, so cold.
The bees and icebox and breakfast stuck out to me.
These stuck out to you. Why did they stick out?
I have no idea.
Well, there's so many like not the fricatives, right? I have V kind of is a little bit, but we usually soften our V a lot. I have eaten the plums, right? P a little bit in plum, but the L softens it. That were in the ice box, right? I think the hardest word in that whole thing, as far as like sound goes, is icebox, right? That's a hard sounding word. But breakfast is also a hard sounding word, right? And which you were probably saving for breakfast. And you're right. On that one, probably stands out and breakfast stands out. Everything else is fairly smooth.
Whoa.
Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold.
Yeah, I didn't get anything from the last one.
Mm-hmm. Even though F is technically a fricative, right? There's forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. Sometimes if you know the authors from a different country, it can be helpful to try to like say it with their accent. William Carlos Williams is American, however, but I think he's Eastern America, like on the East Coast. It might be interesting to read it with an English accent and see what happens, right? So, so sweet and so cold. That's some S's in there. Delicious is another one. Look at that. Delicious, so sweet, so cold. That's a lot of S's there. Almost makes you salivate, right? Almost makes your spit fall out of your mouth.
I am
Yeah.
ready for food now.
We always get back
It's a
to food.
good thing I have a loaf of bread in my bedroom.
Good thing. Marilena
That
brought
doesn't help me. That doesn't help me. Oh, my camera's not working.
All right, Sky, is there anything else that is anaphora or alliteration? Is there anything in the meaning of it that's repetitive?
Icebox and cold are kind of
Okay,
repetitive, maybe.
okay, good. And go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Eating cold plums for breakfast is also kind of repetitive.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about eating them, right?
Yep.
And the
Yeah.
last three lines of the last stanza are all about the taste, delicious, sweet, and cold, right? So
Yeah.
that would also be another helpful thing to look at when you're working on a poem is how many words are used to describe something or spent on an idea, right? And that will give you an idea of almost like if you were to graph it like a pie chart or a bar graph. How much of this poem is about the deliciousness of plums? How much of this poem is about maybe I shouldn't have eaten them? Right? You can
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty clear 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, right. So that's something she can be noticing before she makes her final analyses. Okay, let's go up to Levi. Made it on. Looks like you might have had some technical difficulties, but thanks for hopping on. Red, red rose. What word? What did you notice?
The ones I noticed, let me pull up what I wrote down.
Okay.
There was there was a few similes in there,
Okay.
like
Oh, I forgot about metaphor and simile. Whoops.
where it says, where is it? My love is like a melody,
Good. Yeah. Okay.
and so
And
there's
my
one
love is
more.
like a red, red rose, right? So the first
Yeah.
got two in there. Okay. Good. What else?
There was a hyperbole.
Where?
Is that how you say it? Saying, till the sea's getting dry,
Good.
and the rocks will melt the sun.
Mm-hmm. How about while the sands of life shall run? Not exactly a hyperbole, but still like a grand statement, right?
Yeah.
And 10,000 miles also seems like a grand statement too.
Yeah.
Good job.
Very bold.
Did you
saying.
watch the video on anaphora?
No.
So that's the one on repetition. There's a lot of repetition in yours. So everybody look at his and look at all the times it says love.
So many.
A lot, right?
6.
So many.
Mm-hmm. Does
You can count by how many red underlines there are.
Oh, no, 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 no. It says it 7 times.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a typo when I pasted it in, if it's supposed to be LOVE that time in the third stanza or if it's not, but I'll go ahead and change it for now.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's 7.
Good. So when you have repetition like that, you want to look at how it occurs. So in the first stanza, oh my love, right? Very, very formulaic. And we follow that for just the first stanza. Does that happen again? where we start the first and the third line the same. So fair, no, and I, no. Till of the seas, I, nope. And fare thee well, and I will come. So kind of, and fare thee well, and I will come, sort of. Like we'll start with and, but not as
But
not as
not really.
obvious. Okay, but look at this. And fare thee well, and fare thee well. Whoa, we just started the first and second line the same. Do we do that any other place? So fair art thou, so deep in love. Right? Till the sea's going dry, till the sea's going dry, right? So you noticing all the repetition? Why? What could repetition or different styles of repetition do for a poem? Not necessarily this one, but for any poem. This is for everybody to answer.
Repetition draws the attention.
Mm-hmm.
It could also them trying to explain it better.
Yes, it can. That's a huge one. Good job, Levi. And you didn't even watch the video. It can. There's this thing about humans where we don't always get everything the first time through. And so you teach someone multiple times something, they're going to get something different, hopefully, every time they learn it, right? Which also means you can go deeper. You can give a more specific thing. So my question to you and everyone else is, by the time we get to the end of this poem, do we have a more specific definition of love than we do at the beginning? So let's go through it. My love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Newly sprung in June. So it's red, red, very, very red, right? But it's a baby rose, right? It's just a new one. It's not an old rose. Okay. Oh, my love is like the melody that sweetly played in tune. Okay. Are melodies long, short, forever? Right? When I sing a song, I'm only singing as long as I'm singing it. Right? When I stop singing, it doesn't exist. Right? Does that make sense?
Unless someone else sings it.
So now I'm going to have you guys do that. I'm going to ask you what you think when I read a line. So, fair thou art, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gone dry. Okay. Tell me about the seas.
That's like that's the first thing that you get, like, this is gonna last.
Yeah, this is a big deal, right? Do seas go dry? No, they actually don't. So, good. How about rocks melt with the sun?
That doesn't happen either.
Doesn't happen either, right?
Yeah.
And I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. What does that mean?
Sands of life.
Mm-hmm.
Sands until the sands come to life and start running around.
Okay, I don't think that's what he meant, but that's funny. So Robert Burns is writing kind of a while ago, and one of the ways they would keep time is the sand timers. And so there was a metaphor and an idiom about the sands of life, like when your time was up. And when your time was up is when all the sand goes from the top to the bottom. So that could be what he's referring to here. While the sands of life shall run.
Like in an hourglass thing?
Like what?
Like in an hourglass?
Yeah, like an hourglass. That would be the more correct term.
Right.
Okay, so does that seem more substantial than the newly sprung rose?
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
But also less likely.
Yeah. So a little more dramatic, right? A little bit more big words. Talking the talk, right? I don't know if we're walking the walk yet, but definitely talking the talk. All right. What else did you notice and you guys can all chime in now. What else is there in this poem as far as sounds? Can we do sounds for a minute? Alliteration and assonance.
Sure.
How about saying, well, we'll?
Yeah. And fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee well a while. I love that. Fare thee well a while. That's so fun to say, right? And I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 mile, right? And then we've got a lot of T sounds there, though it were 10,000, right?
Mhm.
All right, my dear. How many times does he repeat my dear?
Uh,
Just two.
Just the two. How
Wait.
many times does he address his love? My dear, my only love. So you want to look at
Pretty
when.
much every time.
Okay, good. So there's a lot in this
The other
poem.
one.
Levi's got a lot to work with in this poem. There's a lot of stuff, right, that you can use as evidence. What about personification? We didn't talk about personification with Cooper either. So love is capitalized in the first two. You see that in the stanza, the first two lines in the first stanza. Oh my love, right?
And after that, it's not.
And then after that, it's not. Are there any other places where we've got a capital letter in there? No, we don't. So, given that the first stanza is kind of my love is kind of transient, and then later it's like, no, actually it's more serious than that, right? That's kind of weird that love would be capitalized and personified in the first stanza, but then not in the last one, in the last three. Why could that be?
um, Kiefer Gore.
You could have forgotten. No. Okay, notice how personal the love gets in the second stanza. So fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my
So
dear.
now,
What?
instead of there being like love is the object, love is the thing he's talking about, he's applying that to the bonny lass.
Yeah. So in the last one too, and fare thee well, my only love,
It-
right? So maybe
taking
there's
the importance away from the thing he's applying it, the thing he's applying, and applying the importance to the thing he's applying it to.
yeah. Good. Good. So that's something that you could use. Let's hop back up to Emily Dickinson. And what are the words that are capitalized for her? This is my letter to the world that never wrote me, right?
World, me, news, nature, majesty, message, hands, her, sweet, and me again.
Yeah. So for Emily Dickinson, she really likes to capitalize things. So it's actually sometimes more interesting the things that she doesn't capitalize. So are there any words in there that you would have maybe guessed they would have been capitalized and aren't?
Countryman, committed, maybe.
Yep. Countryman's the most
Tender,
obvious one.
thoughtless.
What?
Letter,
Letter. Mm-hmm.
tender, letter, committed, maybe.
So I would start with countryman,
Tender.
and I would ask yourself, how does it change the meaning if countryman was capitalized instead of sweet or instead of her? Right? How about the first line? If letter was capitalized instead of world? Or if they were both capitalized? Again,
Whoa.
we're looking for one specific answer, but because that helps you see more deeply what her meaning could be. Okay?
Whoa.
Kind of fun, right? I'm glad you're
That's
enjoying
crazy.
it. All right, cool, cool. You ready for the next step?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So
Let's go for it. Let's do it.
yeah, because we only have like 17 minutes left. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take all the stuff we've talked about, and you've read the poem several times now, and you're going to make a thesis. That's a scary word. You're just going to say, I think this poem means this. Okay? This poem means this. And you're going to give us one sentence. What is this poem about? What does it mean? Now, remember, topic is a little bit different than meaning. Right? The topic of Robert Burns' poem is obviously love, but what's he saying about love? Is he saying love is something that lasts forever? Is he saying something about love is something that grows? What is he saying about love? Okay, and that's for Levi to decide. Skylar's is about what? It's about eating something you weren't supposed to.
I can relate.
I know, right? So that's the topic. But what's it about? What about eating something you weren't supposed to? Okay.
Cookies.
I know it. My husband bought me some the other day because that's what I eat these days is cookies.
Oh,
Cooper, what is your poem about? Have you figured that out yet?
it's like she's talking to the world and the world is talking back.
Okay.
She's like, uh, whoa, wait. There's there's that never wrote to me
Mhm.
the simple news that nature told with tender majesty. So this is her, maybe the world didn't tell her the news that nature told everybody else.
Okay.
So
What
then
is the news
she's
that
like
nature told?
talking to the world. What?
What is the news nature told? Do we have a specific idea of what this news is?
No.
So I think the hardest thing about Dickinson and other poets too is trying to figure out which phrases go together or which phrases describe which phrases or which nouns, right? So looking at this in parts, everybody do this with me. Look at the different parts. Here's the sections of this poem. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me. That's one part. The simple news that nature told with tender majesty. That all goes together. Her message is committed to hands I cannot see. That all goes together. So tell me which of those are related. What is the simple news? Is it the letter? Is it not the letter at all? Is this is my letter to the world that never wrote to me? Is the next part the simple news that nature told? Is that something that she was never told or never wrote to? Like she didn't get that memo, as Cooper was saying, right? Her message is committed to hands I
I
cannot
didn't.
see. Is that the same thing? Are we describing the same thing or are we describing something different with each of those parts? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's like saying the red
I
hat,
think
the
I got it.
got it?
So there's, yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Okay, what do you think?
So there's the two hands I cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
That's where her message is going. And that's implying maybe that the simple news that nature told was told to people that she doesn't know.
Good. Yes, that could be a very good reading of it. I like that. I like that. Okay.
Woohoo!
Who? But then you have to say why you think that.
Uh, because the message is committed to the hands that they can't see. And the message and the simple news, because message and news are pretty similar.
Okay, good.
So her message, her being maybe nature.
Okay.
So nature's message is committed to hands that I can't see. They're talking to people that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And she never told me that stuff that she's telling to other people. So I'm writing to the world. I'm taking the initiative and trying to talk to the world when the world isn't talking to me.
Good. That's totally valid. Something that I might point to in the poem as a reason for my interpretation was this is my letter to the world that never wrote to me, dash. Okay. Then the simple news that nature told with tender majesty, her message is committed to hands I cannot see. I could argue that because of the placement of those dashes, those two things go together or are describing the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily
But Ash kind of connects that never wrote to me to the simple news.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Like
That's
it
what I'm
just
thinking
kind
too,
of
because of the way it's
connects
laid
it
out.
so that yeah.
But again, someone else could look at that and kind of have a different take on it and use different evidence to say that. And again, it's not about the take, it's about how you use your evidence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
poetry is supposed to have a multitude of meanings. It's supposed to. That's its point. But the skill that I want to teach you is how to read and pull evidence and be a critical thinker in supporting of why you think the way you think. And this is something that will help you not just with poetry, this will help you in your whole life. Or otherwise I wouldn't teach it to you. Not because you're going to analyze words
Thanks.
quite like this, but the ability to connect words and evidence to positions and points and opinions is important to be able to do that. Also to know when you're being manipulated by words, right? Politicians. Cool. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left. I want you guys to write a one sentence. What do you think your poem is about? What does it mean? Or maybe you already have that. Levi, do you already kind of have what you think your poem's about?
No.
Well, do you want us to give you some ideas? You guys, let's brainstorm with him. What is
Mm.
Robert Burns saying about love?
It exists as a concept.
Okay, more specific.
There's a lot of variety with love.
Yeah.
It can be newly sprung in June, or it can be it can go until the sands come to life and run around.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, mm,
Okay.
mm,
Yeah, that's
kind
there's
of what I've been
love
getting at.
has a lot of takes up a lot of room. Love is a lot of different things, right?
I feel like there's different kinds of love. That's what
Yeah,
it's saying.
sure, there's a lot of different kinds of love. I feel like
Like
in the
puppy
first
love.
Go ahead, Skylar.
Like puppy love, like the newborn rose, and more long lasting love, like the sand or
Yeah,
whatever.
so love always starts like newly sprung and like a melody. And then as you so fair thou art, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I. As you get to know the object of your love and you fall deeply in love, then love becomes something that you're gonna do forever, no matter what happens, not just something new. It becomes older, more mature, or deeper, right? Seas are deep, right? Rocks are hard, right? So he's describing those are really beautiful descriptions. And then at the end, and fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee well a while. And I will come again, my love, though it were a 10,000 mile. Right? So distance can't separate us. Goodbyes don't make me stop loving you. So if you were going to say that love is something that grows and changes and deepens, you would point to those things as you went through. But you could also point to, like we were up here, the structure of how the end stops are or the enjambments are, right? You can point to the repetition in yours, Levi, for why you're going to say this is what it's about. It's not just about the meaning of the words, right? All right, Skylar, let's look at yours. What's the meaning of yours? What's your statement?
Sometimes you eat plums and you're not sorry about it.
Okay, let's be less like specific and a little bit more philosophical.
But the plums is a metaphor.
Or
Okay, I don't know. Sometimes you do things that you don't really regret, but you have to pretend to regret it anyway to keep up your relationships with people. I don't know.
sure, no, that could be it. And then you would have to pull stuff from the poem to support that. What supports that? All these things we've talked about, those are things that are going to support it. Anybody else want to take a stab at a meaning for Skylar's poem? I might say some things about life are just so good you shouldn't have to apologize for them.
Yeah.
Homemade chocolate chip cookies. Mm,
Okay, so that's your homework. I want to see, and Levi's off now. Dang it, I'll send this out. We've gone through this whole process of looking at all these poems and pulling them apart. And what I want you to do now is write one sentence. The poem means this, just like we've talked about. And then you're going to give me why. What are the pieces of evidence? And I'm not going to make you write it out as sentences even. You can just write, okay, so we'll use Levi's as an example because he's not here, but then he can watch the recording later. So if Levi's is, love is something that grows and changes and isn't just one kind of thing, right? Then he would put underneath that a dash, and then he might put, the first description of love is new and something that dies, a rose. The second description of love is a melody, which is something you can only hear when you're singing it, right? And not also doesn't last very long. In the second stanza, as he starts focusing on who he loves, my Bonnie lass, his love grows deeper. And we have these big, great comparisons. And he can use all those words he already said, the hyperbole. He can point to the anaphora, the repetition, right? He can point to places where there's not end stops or there are enjambments or whatever. Okay. And then he would go talk about the last stanza and what that means. Does that make sense? So you're just going to put dash what it is that makes you think that. Okay. And just put what I think as quickly as you can, and then just the piece of evidence. Okay. So I don't think that should take too long. If you already kind of
We're
know what
just doing really fast stuff.
what?
Like we're just quickly like jotting this down and like yeah.
You're kind of creating an outline for if you were to write an essay. Think about it that way. So your thesis is what you think the poem means in one sentence. And then you don't have to like break it up into 3 paragraphs, right? You just have as many points as you need. If your first point is love starts new and transient, then you'd put your 2 things of reasons or evidence. And if your next point was, but then love grows, here's how he shows how love grows. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And you don't have to write it out in full sentences. I just want to see what you think it means and then show me the evidence. And that's it. No intro, no conclusion, no full sentences even, just kind of an outline of just the evidence, what it means.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't think this should take you too long because you've already found all the evidence. We spent the whole class time kind of figuring out what you think it means. You just got to write it up and then send it to me. So I'm
Okay.
guessing 30 minutes at the most, maybe not even that. I bet Skylar could get it done in 8 minutes. That would be my guess. Only
Who,
because
me?
fast writer.
Mhm.
Maybe it'll take her longer. If it takes you longer than 30 minutes, let me know that, okay?
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Just so you know, our next bit of homework is, let me pull it up. I'm gonna stop this.